Hey, David T.S. Wood here, and welcome to My Extra Mile. Our comment winner today is Anna Dosario. She said, "Thank you so much, David. I always enjoy your podcast, along with so many of your guests that have so much to offer." She said, "Today was short and sweet." That was my solo show. The buck stops here. She said, "But it's so meaningful because we do have to take accountability, and honesty always equals integrity." So thank you, Anna. Today's show is all about the speed of trust. Warren Buffett says this. He says that trust is as important as the air that we breathe. And really, if we want to live in a trusting world, we have to become trustworthy. To trust other people, we have to trust ourselves. So there's so many nuances in this solo show. So enjoy it, and we'll definitely see you on the other side. Hey everyone, just driving back from the gym from a workout, a little bit sweaty here. Just wondering where we want to go today. And it's something that's been going through my mind is a book by Stephen Covey. Not Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. This will be his son, Stephen Covey Jr., who I met a few years ago when he first published the book. And the book's called The Speed of Trust. And the reason I say this is because, when he sort of analyzes what happens when trust is present, is things just move faster. And he references Warren Buffett, how Warren Buffett goes in and connects with a CEO of a company he's buying, and basically on a handshake can move everything forward. He doesn't get caught up in months and months or years of litigation or of negotiations because there's an element of him trusting his intuition to be partnering with the right company at the right time and the right person. And invariably with Buffett and other great leaders, what they're looking for is great leadership in a company, not just a great product or a great service. So that's one element. For me, I find that I sort of work on a principle of 100% trust 100% of the time. And why that, it may sound kind of odd. All I can say is my life flows so easily because I'm not consumed with distrust. And I think distrust is something that affects every element of your life. It affects connection when you first meet someone. If you're distrusting, like a lot of people who go to foreign countries, because I travel so much, and I watch tourists when they're out of their element, when they're out of their comfort zone. Quite often they're projecting their distrust, they're projecting their closed and guarded spirit. And what I feel that does, which is interesting over years and years, remember I've traveled in over 100 countries, and is I believe it attracts exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do. When people are guarded and distrusting, what they tend to, they're trying to protect themselves from this imaginary foe, which is just a feeling. Now I'm not saying there's times, because there has been times where I trust my intuition. So I've been I remember I was with my buddy Eric Coover down in Panama, and we were walking down a certain street at a certain time in the evening, and there was an immense sense of this is not the right place. It wasn't necessarily distrusting a person, it was distrusting a situation. And just listening to that intuition is different from someone whose default mode is distrust. Because when you have a default mode of distrust, and you can probably tell, what you're like, just how you guard your home, how many locks and security and cameras and all the other things that a lot of people have. I do understand if you live in a very, very high crime area, there may be a requirement for you to have certain things. It still doesn't change how you approach it. Some things you do because it's necessary, but walking through the world distrusting, I think, projects an energy that brings back tenfold exactly what you're trying to avoid. because, and I'll give you an example of that. I remember one time I was down in the Caribbean. I lived on a sailboat for a year and sailed across the Atlantic, and I was sailing up through the Caribbean. And so what I'd do is I would sort of hitchhike on different boats as crew and spend time on each island. And then when I was ready to leave, I'd find another boat and sail off again. And I remember there was I was out in the sort of visiting a waterfall and in St. Lucia, and it was kind of like quite remote. And I saw some people that were quite shifty, let's say, and I just engaged with them. Hey, how you doing, guys? Hope you're having a great day. You know, just a normal kind of interaction. And hey, man, you know, it's like that. It was very, you know, I think I surprised them. And what we found out just about 30 minutes later, the same group that I passed robbed these two tourists. When I met the tourists, which is how I heard about it, they were just so distrusting and guarded, and they emitted an energy. And I see this a lot when someone's out of their comfort zone in a situation where they I was just checking the time there, where they you know, feel uncomfortable. They tend to close and not engage and not say hello. And I think it really makes them a target. And in this case, I truly believe that the paranoia and the fear that they were emitting but potentially triggers what happened. Because if you're rude to people and, you know, walk past people and you ignore them or whatever, it's not sort of too far from the realm of possibility that very action could get them thinking, well, screw you, you know. And so, and I know this sounds very superficial, but it's really not. But how do you want to walk through the world? I walk through the world with this idea that I trust 100% of people 100% of the time. And if someone breaks my trust, this is a really important thing, I'll address it with them and have a conversation with them. And what I find is most people don't necessarily walk around. Are there con men around? Yeah, of course there are con men around. And of course there's people that do bad things. But they don't do bad things or con every single person, right? And I, you know, one of the things that I truly believe when I address someone, or if I had a conversation with someone who's broken trust, I'm teaching them how to treat me. I'm sharing with them and showing them that what they did isn't working for me, and giving them a chance to start over and then go back into my 100% trust 100% of the time. Versus, you know, and it's the same with relationships. When people break up with a partner, you know, you see them, you know, moving into their next relationship with less trust. And, you know, because they were hurt once, they're projecting this, you know, this fear, which often can be read as jealousy. And because they're jealous and because they're, you know, fearful, quite often what they end up doing is pushing the very person away who ends up doing the very thing that they were fighting against in the beginning, which again, this sort of vicious cycle. So, but then I look at the next level of trust, which is self-trust. And so how does someone like me trust 100% of the people 100% of the time? And it's because I trust myself to handle or navigate or communicate in all situations, right? And I remember and I think I've shared this story before, but I'll share it again. When I had friends over from Australia, Nat Cook and Sarah, her wife. And Nat is, I suppose it really doesn't matter for the story's sake, but she's an elite athlete. She's a gold medal winner for volleyball. That, you know, her and I are great friends. The three of us are great friends. And they were visiting me at my home in Canada. She's Australian. And we bumped into a couple of people living in a car. And they were wearing some funny clothes. So it sort of initiated for me a conversation. Hey, let me ask, why are you wearing this? I think one of them was wearing a cow outfit, which is, I think they'd been to a party the night before. So what was interesting though, is as I'm talking to them, I could smell their body odor. They really, really, really was quite stinky. And so I said to them, I said, can I share something with you? And they're like, yeah. I said, you guys need a shower. And if you want, you can come up to the house. When I found out they were living in a car. So when you come up to the house and come for a bite to eat, and you can use my shower. And so that night they showed up, And I said to him, just use my master bedroom. Now, I didn't go into my master bedroom and put everything away and hide everything. And the reason I said to use the master and not the guest bedroom, it was really sending a message of welcome, sending a message of absolute trust, it's all kind of messages being sent in that situation. And I remember Nat and Sarah were kind of maybe a little shocked about, me welcoming these people into my home and then letting them be, in my probably most intimate space without any kind of fear, with absolute trust. Anyway, when they came out, we ended up having an Indian meal, and the conversation was amazing. And Sarah ended up, connecting with this one girl because they'd grown up in the same town or very close to the same town in the east coast of Canada. So it was really lovely to see that this sort of welcome turned into a nostalgic, wonderful evening. And of course, what happens with that when you treat people with trust, I believe this is, again, this philosophy based on experience, not based on something I've read in a book, but the philosophy is that, when I offer absolute trust, people become even more trustworthy. And I do that a lot. I offer 100% of trust 100% of the time. And like I say, the big thing is that if somebody breaks it, is the courage to address it and then go back into a trustful situation. Now, are there situations where I don't trust? Yeah, I mean, there is one particular gentleman who I wouldn't trust to be in my house because he's proven himself on multiple occasions. But I mean, the guy's, has a drug issue, and so he is very, very unpredictable. So that situation there, I would be much more aware or conscious, because there is another element going on, which is called drugs, which is, impacting and affecting that decision process, if you like. I'm just pulling up at the house here right now. So, going back to my major point here, which is, how do you want to live through life? That little sunbeam coming through there. How do you want to live your life? And what would happen if you start walking through the world with much more trust, trusting yourself, trusting other people, trusting strangers, and not without being gullible or, like gullibility and those kinds of things are different from connection. Because connection, when I walk into a relationship with absolute trust, I'll give you another example of that. I mean, I do it all the time. Just the other day, these are two examples with the same situation. So I have a boat down in the marina here in the yacht club, and I met a guy, and I saw that he was on another boat, and I just reached out and I said, "Oh, are you one of the owners? Do you own a boat here?" He said, "Actually, no. Actually, I'm doing a little bit of work here." And he makes new canvases for boats, right? I said, "Oh, actually, can I show you something?" And he just walked on the boat. I showed him my situation. I said, "Here, can you take it? Can you repair it?" I had a couple of holes in my canvas. And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, let me just show you where the key is." Now, I'd only known the guy for, 5 minutes, right? And I said, "This is where I keep the key on the boat. But when you're done, just come back and you can just help yourself. You can go down," because he actually repaired something inside as well. With a complete stranger. And of course, the next morning I get a call saying, "Hey, been on the boat, everything's back to normal." He worked so hard. Again, absolute trust, 100% of the time. And then there was a couple, 2 boats up, who I recently met, and they were asking me about my boat. And I said, "Look, the key," I showed them where the key was. I said, "Just go on anytime. If you want to they're trying to find a boat, and they wanted to sort of really look at and understand my boat. I said, here's the key, just pop in anytime you want and just help yourself, and just, and I find that way of life, like my banker has the code to my front door and can come in anytime he wants. My lawyer's the same. I mean, I have a lot of people that are welcome into my space and have, it's not like I'm guarding Fort Knox here. This home is an extension of my heart. And this is a really important thing, home, extension of heart. But I think a lot of people, there's a lot of fear in how they protect their world, and that protection, which means closing and locking and securing and that kind of feeling. And I feel that, you can try it. You can try building trust even in a small way, if you are not a very trusting person or you've been hurt. And this is the crazy thing, like we talked about in a relationship, people get hurt and they walk in with less next time. It's just because you were robbed once doesn't mean you're going to get robbed again, does it? Or someone broke into their house once. And I've had that happen at our last home. Somebody broke in and stole a few things, and for me, it's like, okay, we understand it's a drug-related B&E, and they got away with a few $100s worth of stuff. No big deal, right? But I didn't carry the energy. It wasn't like paranoia and fear, you don't understand, I was broken into. It was much more of an understanding that, yeah, it happens, and if you live in any community, it can happen. Cars can get stolen, all right? But it's not about the car getting stolen. It's how do you respond or adapt to that. That's why we have insurance. That's why. But things can happen. Doesn't mean we have to move from a trusting world into a distrusting or a world where we don't offer or offer trust to people around us. So again, I want you to consider that. Maybe think about reading the book, The Speed of Trust, and look at how do we bring trust into our lives to a greater degree, so that we can experience this thing, this openness, and watch what we can attract through that openness. But again, self-trust is something which again is a practice. It's your ability, for example, if you've been hurt in a relationship and you're going into the next one and you can hear the conversation of suspicion or guardedness, it's like, why not go in and push that all aside and go in 100%, instead of going in to get hurt, go in to get devastated, because the heart will heal. But rather than dragging in less and looking through a lens of fear, looking through a lens of possibility and giving more. In that giving of more, we receive more, right? So anyway, that's kind of the show there, the idea of the speed of trust and becoming more trustworthy as well. That's the other part of this equation, which I think is something is very easy to miss. If we want the world to trust us, then we have to be trustworthy, which comes down to the small things, is keeping your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you don't do it, own up to it and admit to it and apologize for it and let people see. And that happened to me last week. For some reason, I went to bed really late and my phone was dead. And instead of waiting for it to recharge and setting the alarm, I went to an old phone and set the alarm, but instead of setting AM, I set PM. So this was last Thursday. And so I ended up waking up, after my training had started, and I felt awful for my trainer. And so I even today, the last thing I said to him as I gave him a hug after my workout, which I've just come from, was, hey, listen, I really apologize about Thursday. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. But he can see that, I'm deeply sincere about my apology in breaking a commitment, because, I believe that he trusts me, and he's not like wondering whether, oh, this is just a pattern or I don't really care. And remember, I pay him, and the first thing I did when I called on the day I missed it was, hey, listen, charge me anyway, which I think he would, but I said, just charge me anyway. I so apologize, and I told him the truthful story, not an adapted truth story, because I think a lot of us get into that situation where if we break trust, we justify the trust with a story that is sometimes not the truth. It's an element of truth, and there's an exaggeration of truth or whatever, in a way of softening the blow of our, the distrust. So I think that, if we're going to learn how to completely trust ourselves and trust other people, that when we break trust, even in the smallest way, that we clean it up in an authentic and truthful way and tell the absolute truth. So, when people hear the truth, what they do is it reminds them of themselves, because they're like, oh, I've done that. Shit, I've done that so many times, oh my God, I've had that experience. So for example, if you've ever set an alarm where you use PM instead of AM and the alarm didn't go off, then you're probably going to relate to me and say, oh my gosh, I remember doing that. And you may even comment about it. Yeah, I've done that, right? So self-trust, and trusting others comes down to being trustworthy, and which means that we live in a world where our word is our bond. I don't need to sign a piece of paper. If I shake your hand and say this is a deal we're going to make, now I'd rather die than break that deal. Now, could I go back and renegotiate it if stuff comes up? That's happened many times, but I'm not going to back out on the deal. I'll just approach it and say, hey, listen, these new circumstances have arisen. Are you open to looking at this and modifying or changing or adapting this to suit the situation that's occurred? Now, if they say no, so well, don't worry, I get it. We've already made the deal, and I'll follow through on that deal. So again, there's those three elements which I think are so critical. Is if we trust people, they become more trustworthy, and when we are trustworthy, right, we teach people that that we speak a truth and behave in a truth, and they trust us more because of that truth. So this sort of reciprocal, one doesn't come without the other. We're not waiting for the world to show us it's trustworthy before we become trustworthy. It's saying that I'm going to become trustworthy. I'm going to trust myself and build self-confidence and be the kind of person that is willing to fess up and apologize for the mistakes I make and navigate the world in a truthful way by telling the truth, and then not only building self-trust but being a trustworthy person, and then giving people the benefit of the doubt that they are trustworthy. And again, my experience, and this is just my experience, when I trust people 100%, they behave that way. They show up that way, right? And and I say the home is the extension of the heart, and I see that with the amount of people that come and go in my house, and I just give them the benefit of the doubt. And what I don't have is I don't have this fear. And look, and I should talk about this. If someone does break into the house or go into the house and steal something, I accept that's an element of what happens sometimes. But I'm not going to make it a big freaking deal, right? It just happens. Over it right away. It's not going to sort of, I'm going to change all the locks and I'm going to become paranoid, all those kinds of things. It's just that does happen once in a while, and I can adapt and understand that that's an element of society that is there. But I'm not going to live in fear of that element, right? And what I often do, and if you know me at all, which some of you do, my doors are always open anyway. So I think most people, when they come to the door, they're going to be like, oh, it's open. There's someone here. They're going to walk away. But anyway, so I think I've made my point. But I do say this, the world is definitely more beautiful with trust. And my psyche, my soul feels more beautiful with trust. And my ability to distribute or to share trust seems to attract and bring so much back because of the openness. And people are often quite shocked by that openness, the welcoming, just here's my life. And I think what it is that when fear is not present, so and remember, fear is the anticipation of pain, which means that the reason we don't trust quite often is because we're anticipating someone breaking trust. So we go in with half the energy, and we go in with the suspicion or the doubts or the fears. We project that, so someone feeling all that is never going to open up in a way or deliver things in a way that they would if they felt the opposite. If they feel us closed, then most people will mirror and close down in accordance with that. And if they don't feel the connection, going back to the robbery in the Caribbean, and I could give you hundreds of examples of that, if that person had walked down through those woods the same way I had and simply just been open and engaging and kind, then there's a very, very good chance these people may have done what they did to me, which is, hey man, how you doing? And just waited for somebody else who they liked less. And whatever, right? So again, we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. And if we are highly distrusting, we're going to see a lot of things out there that give us cause to distrust. And if we are not distrusting, we see a lot of things out there, elements of kindness and openness and love that really we notice. And if we understand how the brain works, there's a part of the brain called the RAS, the reticular activating system, that makes us and shows us and makes us aware of our predominant thought patterns. But because my predominant thought pattern is that I trust everyone, the world I see, the thing that my RAS, my reticular activating system, makes me aware of is sort of it's in alignment with my common thought process. So because I trust people, I'm always seeing reasons to trust more. If I was distrusting people, my RAS would, and I constantly was worried or fearful, my RAS is constantly going to look and make me right. I'm going to notice the guy standing on the corner with the hoodie on. Now, he may just be a cold school kid with his hoodie up, or he may just have had a fight with his mom and he's really upset. So he may be looking menacing because of something very, very external, right? He may be feeling sick, all these different things, but because I live in a world, my RAS is going to point him out, and I'm going to make up a story about that person saying, oh, that person is distrusting, or that person is someone not to trust, or I should be scared or fearful of that. So remember, the RAS is an interesting thing. Whatever we predominantly think about, we're going to see and notice in the world. So the world is not, we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. And so, and that's really an important distinction. So if you want to see a more beautiful world, if you want to see a more open and kind and loving world, then become more loving and kind and open, and your RAS is going to notice and see and give you more evidence every single day of loving and kind and beautiful and genuine and generous kind of situations. So anyway, enjoy the show. Remember the book, The Speed of Trust, Stephen Covey, and look at ways that you can implement trust, again, on all those different, how to become more trustworthy, how to create more self-trust, and then how to deliver and give the benefit of the doubt and offer 100% of trust to people. And again, I do it 100% of the time. And if someone breaks trust, again, I just give them a little talk to. If they were to do it multiple times, then of course I realize this is a completely distrusting or someone untrustworthy, and I'm just not going to allow them in my world, because that's it. But I'm not going to do it with the first, I used to own a restaurant and bar, and people would come in if they had a bad meal, what happens once in a while, so I always give a restaurant three kicks at the can, because I understand it could be a bad day. The chef may have just been off for a break. There's 100 reasons why I may get not a great meal, but I'll give and that's the same thing with people. When they do something, give them the benefit of the doubt and offer real, truthful feedback, and then let them know that they're still welcome. But there are a set of rules you live by, and one of those rules is, to be trustworthy and to offer trust. So anyway, enjoy the show, and please, remember to subscribe, and if you push like and comment, it does change the algorithms on the show, and I'll definitely see you on the other side.